Okay, it's 30 days to Pesach. There's a din Shulchan Aruch. The Shleishim Yom, the Gemara says, but Shulchan Aruch Paskins, Shleishim Yom Kedem Achag, 30 days before Yom Tif, you have to start talking the dinim, learning the dinim of Yom Tif. Now, years ago in the time of the Bais Din, nothing was written. There was no Shulchan Aruch, there was no written books. So the Chacham, the rabbi, would basically start teaching the laws of Pesach. In fact, there's even a machlekes in the Rishonim. When you say Shleishim Yom, does that mean including Purim or starting from the day after Purim? And Alter Rebbe at the beginning of Hilchos Pesach says, "Mi Purim ve'elach." So the Alter Rebbe holds you can start from Purim, teaching or learning already the dinim of Pesach, versus other Rishonim that hold you start the day after Purim. But anyway, it's the day after Purim anyway. Okay, so you still have to teach the dinim, even though everything is written today in the Svarim, but the person still has an obligation to learn all the dinim that they need to know about the Yom Tif 30 days, starting from 30 days before the Yom Tif. Also, because there's a concept 30 days before the Yom Tif has a connection to the Yom Tif, so for instance it says you're supposed to be more careful 30 days before Pesach with chametz around Svarim and chametz around things because it's within the era of Yom Tov already. So if you're learning by a table and there's chametz, you should be careful that the book doesn't get chametz in it, because then you have issues with chametz and Pesach. Another thing is our custom. Again, there's a lot of different customs, but let me say the halacha is only Erev Pesach, you're not allowed to eat matzah. That's rabbinic din, that you're not allowed to eat matzah, Pesach the matzah, Erev Pesach. The Gemara has very sharp expressions about somebody who does. But some people have a minig, 2 weeks before Pesach they don't eat shmura matzah. Some people have, and the Rebbe writes, that's our minig, starting from 30 days, meaning now already, we don't eat shmura matzah before Pesach. Now that only applies though to Pesach de matzah. Chametz de matzah is not matzah, it's chametz. So the takana, even though you might eat matzah that tastes similar to Pesach de, like whole wheat matzah, whatever, nevertheless, according to our minig, you're allowed to eat chametz de matzah even up to Erev Pesach. I mean, until the time you're not allowed to eat chametz, Erev Pesach. But no, what do you mean mixed? What do you mean mixed? What do you mean chametzik? And your draw doesn't mean it's chametzik. Was it in a bag?
No.
Bunch new smarts in a drawer? It's still not chametz. It's still matzadik. It's a...
So you cannot have that?
What?
The matzah from last year.
Wait, no, he's not talking about for Pesach.
Matzah at Shalasha is this past Shabbos, and we put it back into the box. Could you have this matzah?
That's right.
No, because it's Pesach the matzah.
So we cannot have that.
Egg matzah you can have until the time you're allowed to eat chametz and Erev Pesach. So in other words, we're talking about, not it doesn't have to be only shmura matzah. Matzah which is kosher lePesach, the minig is you don't eat it 30 days before Pesach. Also, now that it's 30 days before Pesach, halacha says that there's a concept called mois chitim. Now literally means, mois is money, chitim is wheat. What they used to do in the shtetls was the Rav would make in fact it was very strict, because the Rav would assess every family based on their income and how much mois chitim they had to give. But why is it called mois chitim? It means wheat money. Because years ago they used to collect money from people, and they used to make the flour for the matzah, and they would make matzah to give out to the poor people. That's why it's called mois chitim, money for wheat, because that's what they used to collect money, make flour out of the wheat, and then give it out to the poor people. So the name stuck, mois chitim, even though mois chitim itself means actually money for the poor.
The matzah those days was also $30 amount?
No. Shmura matzah in those days they made themselves. It wasn't like today you have matzah bakeries. There was maybe in the small shtetl one place that made,
$20 a pound anyway.
huh?
You're not finding matzah for $20 a pound.
He said 30.
Oh, 30. 30 is more like it. 20.
Okay. If you buy last year's matzah in Mustama, it's a little bit cheaper. No, if you didn't, halachically, if the matzah is kept Pesach, you can use last year's matzah. It might not be as fresh, but technically, you can do it on Shabbos. But on Yom Tov, you can even put matzah into the oven, Pesach Dika oven, like during Pesach, if you have, let's say, last year's matzah. Or even this year's matzah, you want to crisp it up more. So halachically, you'd be allowed to put it into an oven, and, huh?
There's nothing else in the oven.
Well, not talking, yeah, because they're gebroks.
The steam will make it.
Because if you have other stuff in the, yeah, not chametz, but gebroks is going to make it.
If you have a steamed vegetable and you put a matzah on top of that in the oven, the steam of the vegetables will manage to make the matzah chametz.
No, it won't. It'll make it gebroks, it won't make it chametz. Once matzah is baked as matzah, it can't become chametz, unless you have the issue of gebroks. But those that are not makpid and gebroks can do it. But the problem is, if the matzah is wet, and this, then it has other taste to it, you might not be able to use it for the mitzvah of matzah. But that we'll get to when we get there. Also, another thing the Rebbe wanted, and the Rebbe always spoke about it earlier, that people should make sure that people have proper, round, handmade shmura matzah for the Seder at least, because that's, according to Kabbalah, it's supposed to be that way, and even halacha it's preferred, that it should be round, dafka handmade, and so on. Okay, now as far as the minhagim of the month of Nisan, even before we get into halachos of Pesach. Okay, so the whole month of Nisan, starting from Erev and Rosh Chodesh Nisan at Mincha, there's no tachnun. There's no tachnun, so you don't say, according to our custom, you don't say lam natseach, you don't say kelar chapayim, you don't say nothing. There's no, you don't say averachmim. Obviously, when you say ben Shabbos from Varchim Nisan, you don't say it either. Okay, but you don't say averachmim and Shabbos during the month of Nisan. You're not allowed to fast in the month of Nisan. It's forbidden to fast. Only a chassan and kala are allowed to fast. Even Rosh Chodesh Nisan, which is interesting. Normally, if a chassan and kala get married on Rosh Chodesh, so you're not allowed to fast on Rosh Chodesh. So therefore, they would fast the day before Rosh Chodesh, the day before the wedding. But the Rosh Chodesh Nisan, halacha says a chassan and kala do fast. Why? What's the difference between Rosh Chodesh Nisan and all the other Rosh Chodashim? So the difference is, there's a story in Chumash and Pasha Shmini that Nadav and Avihu died. It's Bayem HaShmini. Okay, Nadav and Avihu passed away. And therefore it became what was called Tainus Sadikim. So because of that tragedy, Chsanim and Kalas could fast during the month of Nisan, even the Rosh Chodesh. But nobody else can fast. You have a Tainus Chalom, but also. Okay.
But during the month, if they never, let's say, on 10th of Nisan, they do fast.
Yeah. The whole month they fast. The Chiddush is Afilu Rosh Chodesh. The only time they wouldn't fast is Isru Chag, the day right after Pesach. Those they get married then. Because the whole Shail Bat Sfira then. What?
Was the reason Rosh Chodesh Nisan after they could fast as opposed to other Rosh Chodashim?
Because a bad thing happened. It was called Tainus Sadikim. Okay, next. It's also a minig to say the Nasi. Now let me explain the reason why we don't say Tachnun the whole month of Nisan. The din was the first 12 and 13 days of Nisan, the Nasiim brought their Karbanis when they dedicated the Mishkan. So the din was, it was a Yom Tov for that day that the tribe, the head of the tribe, the Nasi, brought the carbon for that day. It was a Yom Tov. So today we don't know which Shevet we're from, even Levi or Koyanim. So therefore every day became a Yom Tov. The 13th of Nisan is either because it was Keneged Shevet Levi, or it was Isru Chag, the day after the 12 days. There's two reasons in halacha. And then you have Erev Pesach, there's no Tachnun. Then you have the 8 days of Pesach, there's no Tachnun. So because the vast majority of the month, you don't say tachlin, so therefore the Chum said the whole month you don't say tachlin. Okay, then when you say the Nasi of that day, there's a Yiratzin in the back. And the Yiratzin in the back, you say that if I came from the tribe of Yehuda or Reuven or whatever it was, Yisachar, I mean whatever the order over there was, so then it would be considered as if I'm not from that tribe, it should be considered this carbon that the Nasi brought to forgive and all that stuff. So the question is, what does a Kohen or a Levi do? Kohen or Levi knows he's not coming from Reuven, Shimon, or Yehuda, Yisachar, he doesn't know. So the Rebbe Rashab said to his brother-in-law, who was a Hornstein, who was a Kohen, the Rebbe Rashab said to him, you still say it, because by Neshamas there's a concept called Ibur, pregnancy. Sometimes another Neshama comes into another Neshama. The Rebbe speaks about it in Perek Yudalad of Tanya, about even a person tries to be a tzaddik, if he tries hard enough, Hashem will give him Chinas Ibur. So, therefore he says it anyway. Okay, next. Also in the month of Nisan, and here's an interesting thing. In the month of Nisan, when you see a tree that's sprouting, blossoming, a fruit tree which blossoms, there's a special bracha that you say once a year, one of the few brachas you say once a year. It's in the Siddur. But that's a bracha that you say in the month of Nisan when you see blossoming of a fruit tree. Some poskim hold it's better if you have 2 trees. Say the bracha over 2 trees. But the minig is even if you have 1 tree, you still make the bracha. But now there's an interesting thing. But Avraham Chaim Noah writes.
You have to have the flowers already, no?
That's called the blossom in English. So Avraham Chaim Noah says that Shulchan writes, even in the law, Chabad, he writes that the Alter Rebbe says Nisan, but you could do it in Adar or Iyar. That's what he writes over there. You could do it in Adar. The Alter Rebbe doesn't mean Dafka Nisan, because that's usually the time that it happens. But he holds that if you do it in Adar or Iyar, it's also fine. But the Rebbe emphatically disagrees with that, and the Rebbe holds that the Alter Rebbe says Nisan, he means only Nisan. The Rebbe holds you can only do it in the month of Nisan. You can't do it not in Adar, not in Iyar. Only the month of Nisan. By the way, this is not something up Din that you have to go look for. Certain brachas, we learned already in the past, certain mitzvahs you have an obligation to do. Tefillin, tzitzis, not even tzitzis. But those mitzvahs that you have a chiyuv to do. Then there's other mitzvahs, there's no obligation to do it. If there's a situation, then you do it. For instance, there's a mitzvah in the Torah called shchita, to shecht an animal. There's no mitzvah in the Torah you have to do shchita. The Torah says, if you want to eat meat, then you have to do shchita. If I don't want to eat meat, I don't have a mitzvah that I must go do like tefillin, I have to go do the mitzvah. If the mezuzah, if I want to live in the street, I don't want to have a house, there's no chiyuv to buy a house to put up a mezuzah. There's no chiyuv, today you have to do it anyway. There's no chiyuv to buy a 4-cornered garment to put tzitzis on. The Torah says if you have a 4-cornered garment, then you have to put on tzitzis. There's many, many mitzvahs like that. These mitzvahs, it's not something you have to run to do. If you live in a city that there's no fruit trees, like I live in New York, and most places in New York doesn't have fruit trees like California does. Okay, but I'm saying in many places in California, in Manhattan, I don't think you're going to see too many fruit trees. So then you don't have to go and take a trip somewhere to California. You don't have to. If you're in California, see a fruit tree.
You have a fruit tree in your backyard. Can you do it on Shabbos or you don't do it on Shabbos?
Could do it on Shabbos, why not? But
How close do you have to be to the tree?
you have to see the blossoming.
So if you're like you're in this shore, for example, and outside you see there's a fruit tree blossoming. We have to be outside.
Unless if you have X-ray vision, like Superman.
If you see this tree right over here outside that has a blossom, that's assumed. This tree right behind the
It's doubtful, but let's say you have very good vision, yeah, then you could.
You don't have to do it.
I thought you have to touch it.
No.
You just look at it?
If I carried Shabbos, you wouldn't be allowed to touch it. But, no, you have to see it. You have to see the blossoming. How good eyes, it depends how good you're able to see. Okay, what is that? That's, okay, one more din. Yeah, we say only on fruit trees you make the bracha. Okay, now, Shabbos HaGadol, we'll just learn this one din, and then the next time we'll go into different things. By the way, there's another thing, that what happened if I saw it once, the fruit tree, and I didn't make a bracha? I didn't have a siddur. And a day later, I see the fruit tree now, but now I have a siddur. So the Kseiser Shulchan also writes in the Alter Rebbe is mashma, then you can't make the bracha, because the bracha is said for the first time you see it. So if you don't see it if you saw it the first time, you didn't make a bracha, then...
A new tree or the same tree?
But Bashta is the same tree.
So it's in Adar and you're waiting for Nisan to make the bracha. Is it the first time you saw it in Nisan?
No, because you couldn't make a bracha in order, according to the Rebbe's opinion, so then it's the first time you see it.
It's the first time you see it in Nisan.
Right.
Okay.
So then you're able to do it. Okay,